It started like any normal school adventure. Bright faces, excited voices, backpacks filled with snacks, cameras, and dreams. 6 young schoolgirls were getting ready for an 8-day forest exploration trip. Their parents hugged them, clicked pictures, and waved goodbye with trust in their hearts. Among the group was one boy who wasn't supposed to stand out, but somehow always did. Samir, calm, obedient, soft-spoken, the kind of boy every parent felt safe around. But behind his quiet smile, a storm was preparing, a storm no one saw coming. As the bus moved toward the deep meter forest, the girls laughed, sang, and made TikTok videos. They teased each other, shared snacks, and captured every moment. Samir sat quietly, occasionally glancing at his phone, sending secret messages no one noticed. The forest welcomed them with cool air and towering trees, casting long shadows across the ground. Everything felt magical. The group explored trails, shot vlogs, cooked noodles on a small stove, and told ghost stories around the fire. It was perfect, until the night Samir received a message that changed everything. "We're in position. Bring them to the marked spot." A simple line, a terrifying plan. The next morning, Samir suggested they take a different path, a hidden trail, he said, one he had researched online. The girls trusted him. Why wouldn't they? He was always the careful one. They followed him deeper into the forest, where sunlight barely touched the ground. Hours passed. The trail felt strange, unfamiliar, almost too quiet. Aisha whispered, "Samir, where exactly are we going?" He smiled and said, "Just 10 more minutes." But those 10 minutes were the last peaceful moments of their lives. When they reached a clearing, the forest suddenly burst into chaos. 4 masked men emerged. The girls screamed and tried to run, but the ground was uneven and the trees closed in like walls. Samir stepped aside calmly as the men grabbed the girls. The look of betrayal in the girls' eyes was more painful than any weapon. Sarah screamed, "Samir, help us!" But he didn't move. He didn't even look at them. He handed his bag to one of the men, who took out a packet full of money. The deal was complete. The girls were dragged away, crying, begging, calling for help. Samir walked away from the clearing, not once turning back. Hours later, he returned to the campsite pretending to be injured, out of breath, claiming he had got separated and lost the girls. Teachers panicked. Calls were made. The school alerted authorities. Parents rushed to the forest, crying and shouting their daughters' names. Samir repeated the same scripted lies again and again. Meanwhile, deep inside the forest, the 6 girls were tied, blindfolded, and pushed into an abandoned logging facility. Their voices echoed off the metal walls. Aisha trembled. Mina tried to comfort her. Lara prayed. Sarah tried to break the ropes. But no matter how hard they tried, nothing loosened. Hours turned into a day. The buyer arrived, a cold-hearted man who saw girls not as humans but as merchandise. Payments were confirmed, phones were switched off, and the girls were left wondering if their parents would ever find them. Back in civilization, news channels exploded with breaking headlines. 6 schoolgirls missing. 1 boy returns alone. Possible kidnapping. But soon, journalists noticed something strange about Samir's statements. He kept changing details. The time he separated, the direction they walked, who was ahead, who was behind. Something wasn't right. By the 3rd day, suspicion had already begun forming like dark clouds. Then came the game-changing moment. A journalist whispered privately, "Samir isn't scared, he's hiding something." That single sentence turned the entire case upside down. The police questioned him again. He lied again, but the truth was closing in. On the 5th day, an anonymous message came, "Check his second phone." That was the moment Samir's mask cracked. Police raided his room. They found money stuffed under his mattress. And inside his bag, a small black phone with only one contact saved, buyer. When they confronted him, his face turned pale. He tried to run but collapsed. His confession came in broken sentences. He had sold the girls for money. He had led them into the trap knowingly. He knew the men. He knew the plan, and he knew the girls wouldn't survive long. Parents broke down hearing this. Some fainted, others screamed in agony. Meanwhile, inside the forest, the girls were still fighting for their lives. A guard accidentally dropped keys while dozing off. The girls used their feet to drag them. After a long struggle, they freed themselves, but freedom came with danger. Running barefoot through a dark forest, with men chasing them, was like running through a nightmare. They were bleeding, exhausted, terrified, but they kept going. They split to confuse the men. But the forest was unforgiving. 2 girls were caught. Their screams disappeared into the night. The other 4 kept running toward the cliffside, unaware that hope was on its way. Police drones scanned the forest. Search dogs picked up scents. Officers moved through the darkness, whispering one prayer again and again. Let them be alive. A drone detected 4 heat signals. Officers ran. When they reached the cliff, they found the girls unconscious, alive, but barely. The world held its breath as ambulances rushed them away. But the 2 missing girls, they weren't found until morning. And when found, they were gone forever. The forest had taken them. The rescue of the 4 surviving girls ignited the biggest police operation the region had ever seen. Officers stormed through the meter forest, hunting every trail, every footprint, every hidden path. At dawn, armed teams surrounded the abandoned logging facility. The guards tried to escape. 1 fought back and was shot. 2 surrendered. The buyer was caught hiding behind metal crates. The facility was filled with chains, ropes, food packets, and signs of struggle, every piece of evidence confirming the horror the girls had endured. Samir was brought to the site. When he saw the handcuffs hanging, the blood stains on the floor, and the bodies being covered by sheets, he dropped to his knees and cried uncontrollably. But it was too late. No amount of crying could undo what he had done. The 4 surviving girls were hospitalized. They were dehydrated, bruised, traumatized, yet somehow still strong. When the officers asked for details, each girl bravely recounted the unbelievable nightmare. Their statements were heartbreaking. We trusted him like a brother. He planned everything. He walked away when we begged him. Their courage shook the nation. News outlets broadcast emotional interviews with parents, fathers who hadn't slept for days, mothers whose voices trembled with grief, siblings who still believed their sisters would walk through the door. Protesters filled the streets demanding justice. Schools implemented new safety protocols. Laws were proposed to prevent such tragedies from ever happening again. Samir faced trial for human trafficking, kidnapping, conspiracy, and indirect murder. His emotionless confession, the money found in his possession, the buyer's testimony, and the girl's statements sealed his fate. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment without parole. As he was taken away, he whispered, "I didn't think they would die," but his excuses meant nothing to a broken nation. The families of the 2 girls who didn't survive received their daughters wrapped in silence. Their funerals became national mourning days. Thousands attended. Their lives became a symbol, one that no one would forget. The 4 survivors, though safe, carried memories that would follow them forever. Yet they vowed to speak out, to warn others, to protect every child who might trust the wrong person. In the end, the story delivered a message louder than any headline: danger does not always wear a stranger's face. Sometimes it hides in a smile you trust. Sometimes it walks beside you. Sometimes it calls itself a friend. Those girls walked into the forest with pure hearts, believing the world was safe. But their trust was shattered by the one person they believed would never harm them. And in their tragedy, the world learned a lesson that must never be forgotten: never trust blindly. Never follow anyone into isolation. Always tell your family where you are going. Because some mistakes, once made, leave scars that time cannot erase. Their story is not just a crime report, it is a warning. A warning for every child, every parent, every person who hears this voice. Be careful who you trust, because sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one standing right beside you.